It's officially hockey season now that the World Series has claimed a historic Game 7 ending to the baseball season. There was great action north of the border, though I'm not sure many Canadian fans saw it. And there was great action in the Sun Belt tonight as well as out west.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get your first look at a recap of all the night's action in the NHL during the regular season and the playoffs, whether it's one game, 16, or somewhere in between. We're always here with the latest for you. We are available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Alex Wiederspiel. He's Shukri Wrights here on Locked On NHL Game Night, where you can get the latest on all the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night in the NHL with a big assist from some of our Locked On local experts. It was a busy night in the league that included multiple games. I think we wound up with 6 that could not be decided in regulation, and still nothing as dramatic as what took place in Toronto tonight, Shukri.
I mean, I don't even want to touch that with a 100-foot pole. But no, seriously, it was one hell of a night for hockey, and across the great hockey landscape, both here in the U.S. and in Canada as well. But man, a lot of hockey to get into. Let's get right into it right now, immediately.
Yes, we're going to open in Montreal, where the Canadiens came from behind, scoring a goal with fewer than 3 minutes left. Ivan Demidov on a give and go sends to Lane Hudson, who waits for Demidov to get into the high slot. Nobody's covering Ivan Demidov. Picture perfect pass. He clobbers it for the game-tying goal. And in overtime, an absolutely brutal turnover by the Senators at center ice gives Alex Newhook his hero moment as the former Colorado first-round pick drilled the winner on a breakaway past Linus Ullmark. Quiet night for both goalies in a relatively low shot volume game, Shoe, but some big time plays from young stars. Montreal got goals in regulation from Yura Slavkovsky, Cole Caulfield, and Ivan Demidov. We're going to hear right now from Lauren Saba of Locked On Montreal.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. The Montreal Canadiens play really well in the first period. The Montreal Canadiens squander the lead in the second period. The Montreal Canadiens find themselves trailing in the third period. The Montreal Canadiens tie the game very late. The Montreal Canadiens win the game in overtime. This seems to be the formula the Canadiens have been using to win games as of late, more often than not. And tonight's game against the Ottawa Senators was no different. It's the first home game in a while. I will point out that this was the first game that we have seen that Noah Dobson and Mike Matheson pairing not be amazing. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. And Samuel Montembeault, getting the vote of confidence from Marty a couple of days ago, played really well in the beginning, but once the Canadiens started giving up goals, you could tell his body language was changing and still getting nervous. But that win should hopefully help his confidence going forward, because he really needs to get back.
What do you think, Shu? Sam Montembeault, I think he only wound up making 14 saves tonight. Mm-hmm. How important is he to Montreal right now if he doesn't get going?
Very. Like, you got to the playoffs last season with Sam Montembeault being a vital cog to the success of the Montreal Canadiens, and you need him to turn things around. Listen, you heard Martin St. Louis, the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, give him pretty much a vote of confidence, saying, listen, we believe in you. I believe in you. So for me, like, Montembeault is critical for the Montreal Canadiens' hopes of returning back to the Stanley Cup playoffs, especially if they are going to make a push, which I think that they will. And a big reason is going to be because of their young core, which came up huge tonight, and as well as Sam Montembeault.
In Sunrise, it was two teams with Stanley Cup aspirations. Feels like we say that every year. The defending champion Florida Panthers hosting the Dallas Stars. Scoreless first, then Brad Marchand gets Florida on the board. Nice day for Marchand, coming off a brief stint away from the team as a guest coach in Nova Scotia after the death of the daughter of one of his friends who passed away from cancer. He scored the opening goal and the shootout winner as a shorthanded Panthers team. We're going to be saying that all year. Got their 5th home win in just 7 tries. Goals in this one from the Sams, Bennett and Reinhart. Dallas got 2 power play tallies from Wyatt Johnston and a first for Justin Hirkowian and Mikko Rantanen, his 5th forced overtime. This is potentially a Stanley Cup final preview, depending on how healthy Florida gets.
And I think it could very well be, especially as you mentioned, health being the big operative word for Florida. I mean, if they get back to being healthy at any given point in time, they absolutely could very well be back in the Stanley Cup Finals. But keeping it to just right now, Marchand, the way that he scored and in the salute to the heavens, I thought that was really touching to see. And I think that for Florida, this is another key victory for them as they continue to bounce back from what was a little bit of a slow start of the regular season for the Florida Panthers.
Marty Necas scores 30 seconds into the Colorado-San Jose game. He and Nathan MacKinnon both scored. That line continues to sizzle. Maybe the best in the NHL, but it's San Jose with Macklin Celebrini. Who else? And then who? A 2-goal night from Philip Kurashev, upsetting Colorado, thanks in part to a big 37-save performance from Yaroslav Askarov. Going to get to him in just 1 second, Shu, but first, let's hear from J.D. Young of Locked On San Jose Sharks.
The San Jose Sharks with a massive win over the Colorado Avalanche, beating one of the best teams in the NHL, thanks to Philip Kurashev's 2 goals, including an overtime winner. The Sharks started slow, which you would expect, especially with a 1 p.m. Pacific time start, but Macklin Celebrini continues to lead the way. He had a goal to tie things up late in the first, and then also was absolutely dominant to start the third period, and kept the Sharks in this game, in a game which we have seen the Sharks lose several times. But the big story tonight, though, Yaroslav Askarov bouncing back after a poor performance against the LA Kings. He only allowed 2 goals, both of them kind of fluky, one off a skate, one off of a review. But Askarov was huge tonight as the Sharks were able to hang in the game until they found their legs. But Philip Kurashev, overtime winner, gets the Sharks a 3-2 win. So we'll break down this game on your next episode of Locked On Sharks, wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well.
Thanks, JD. Much appreciated, man. All right, Shu. So Yaroslav Askarov came off kind of a rough outing the other night, and I felt like San Jose was going to have no chance against Colorado without Askarov having a big night. Boy, that's a huge turnaround for a young goalie.
Oh, absolutely. And just to see that type of turnaround only instills confidence in which that when you're a young goalie, you need to be able to be burgeoning with confidence in every shape and form. So for me, I think this is a great sign for this team moving forward in terms of developing this goalie, and as well as ensuring that he's going to be able to handle the pressures of playing in the NHL.
I believe San Jose actually sat Michael Misa tonight as well, but they're expected to bring him back tomorrow. They are playing, I believe, back-to-backs. So that was an interesting one. They're trying to keep him steady and healthy. Just fun. Before we get to our last game of the segment, it's also fun to see San Jose be – I'm not going to say they're good, but they are very watchable, and that is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely, and that's all you can ask for, especially if you're a San Jose fan who has seen the stages of this rebuild that's been going on in San Jose for a couple of years now.
All right, so already Buffalo's 8th home game of the season in 12 to start the season, and obviously it wasn't a great start to the year. They're winless on the road, but they've been a lot better at home, and while the Caps got off to a quick start in this one with goals from Dylan Strome and the big man, Alexei Protas, 2 minutes and 15 seconds in, Buffalo would fire back, though, 15 seconds later, a goal from Tage Thompson, their big man. They'd scored twice more in the first, what was a pretty wild first period, including the first career goal for Isaac Rosen. season in the NHL, a Buffalo first-round pick from a couple of seasons ago. Washington would even it up in the second to force overtime, and both teams would do a better job defending at that point. The Sabres ultimately get the shootout win. I'll be fully frank. I've been very critical of Buffalo this season, but I think they have at least, I don't know if I'm going to say they've righted the ship, but I'm starting to believe a little bit that they are going to at least play some meaningful hockey into the trade deadline period when it was looking like they couldn't have started worse when the season began.
I mean, I was critical of Lindy Ruff at one point, but I'm not ready to say that they've righted the ship or they're playing better hockey. Yes, but I do think that they still have a bit of a ways to go before I can start to think that they're playing meaningful hockey come like March or anything like that. So I will say that in conclusion, but it was good to see like Bowen Byram like step up huge for this team, and then as well as to continue to see like Tage Thompson score, as obviously Alex Tuck as well.
Yeah, we'll take a look ahead at what's coming up. The Bruins play maybe their best game of the season against a shorthanded Canes team. Capo Caco, could he get revenge finally facing his former team for the first time? All that and more coming up on Locked On NHL Game Night. Before we get back to the show, folks, our show brought to you in part today by Game Time. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. Now, let's be real, getting tickets can be a headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated. I get it. I've been there. When all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Now, I love that when you use this app, you are going to see what you pay with no hidden fees at checkout. So you see what you pay, you know what you pay the whole way going through. They've also got amazing zone deals. Those are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, you save big. You can also find tickets sometimes for under $25. And if you're like me, who has to travel sometimes an hour and a half to go watch the Rangers play the Penguins, 3 hours to go watch the Rangers play the Blue Jackets, you like getting a deal here and there if you're going to be spending on gas money these days. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right. Shu, lots of great games tonight in the NHL, and couldn't fit them all into one segment. We couldn't fit all the overtime games into one segment. We go out to Seattle, where it was a gorgeous fall evening there. The New York Rangers wrapped up a 4-game road trip in kind of an oddball of a game. The Rangers kind of dominated this one at stretches, limited Seattle to just 13 shots, and yet it was in doubt to the final moments of this game. The Rangers ultimately get an overtime win. JT Miller with a terrific play in overtime to set up the goal for Will Cooley. He had 2 points on the evening as the Rangers, in the middle of going through a personality change we haven't seen so abrupt since Russia in World War I. John Chick from Locked On New York Rangers has the full details on this win.
Well, that was absolutely awesome. The Rangers win their second straight game in overtime, third straight win overall. Just a fantastic, hard-earned win in Seattle. And you got to give all the props in the world to JT Miller and Will Cooley making it happen in the overtime. JT basically, he almost did the exact same thing that he did against Edmonton. It was on the opposite side of the ice, but he goes up the left side and he went toward the front of the net with such a head of steam that it caused all three Seattle defenders on the ice to basically gravitate to him, and then he sends the pass to Will Cooley across to his right, and Will Cooley takes care of the rest. And what an awesome ending to a road trip. This road trip got off to an absolutely miserable start with a blowout loss to Calgary, and lo and behold, the Rangers win 3 in a row, including the last 2 in overtime. So they should be going home to a hero's welcome up against the Canes in the next one. Obviously a big-time division matchup, but can't say enough about the job that this team did tonight and on the road trip as a whole. Going to break it down in the next episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Do not miss it.
They were one of the worst defensive teams a year ago, Shu. Do you buy the Rangers' personality change that they are now, in fact, one of the best defensive teams in the NHL after the first month of the season?
I do, only for the mere fact because of Mike Sullivan. I think the team is a mirror image of what Mike Sullivan brings in terms of personality and the type of hockey that Coach Sullivan wants the players to play. And I think that for me, ultimately, it is a welcome change because defensively it was problematic last season, and this year they have certainly made improvements in that department, which is going to be important for them moving forward.
No kidding. They were 29th by natural stat tricks high danger chances against last season, near the worst in the league. First month of the season, I believe they finish number 1. We'll see if that lasts. Oilers and Blackhawks. This one went to overtime. Kudos to Chicago for, again, getting a point out of this one. Bouchard from Draisaitl and McDavid, the finishing touch tonight. 3-assist night for the man they call McJesus. But Connor Bedard gets a point as well, Shu. And I've liked the way Connor Bedard has played all year. And again, similar to San Jose and maybe even a step beyond San Jose, maybe Chicago's not good, but they look like a competent hockey team under Jeff Blashill here in the first month now of his time as head coach of Chicago. You talked about the Sullivan effect. I was a little skeptical of that hire at first. Got to tell you, I like what he's done in Chicago through the first month.
Oh, same here. I think a lot of it is because you're seeing the young players take that step forward in terms of maturation. And I think also what helps is having the right veterans in Chicago, like Tyler Bertuzzi's there. Obviously, Nick Foligno, the captain, who's been there for a couple of years now. But having Jeff Blashill, who had been a head coach previously with Detroit, is definitely paying dividends for the Chicago Blackhawks, especially as they look to take another step forward in their rebuilding process.
One of the things I like about Blashill, by the way, is that he doesn't seem to coddle anybody. He's asking and expecting. And I think this is what Todd McClellan's doing in Detroit. And I think to a certain extent, this is what Mike Sullivan's doing in New York. He's saying, oh, hey, you want playing time? Well, I need you to play in big moments. Connor Bedard playing on the penalty kill this year. Mike Sullivan had Alexis Lafreniere out defending a goal. Alexis Lafreniere out defending a goal the other night in Vancouver with an empty net for the Canucks. And I think if you're a coach and you've got a young, talented offensive player, you got to tell him you have got to learn to play in these moments. So kudos to all these coaches. That seems to be the theme here, that these guys have made a real difference.
Absolutely. And that's something that you want your players to thrive, put them in situations where they're going to be able to thrive. And that's something that that Mike Sullivan has been able to do so far, and as well as Jeff Blashill.
Yeah. Did the Bruins play their best game of the season? Carolina is shorthanded at the moment. A lot of injuries they're dealing with, particularly on the blue line. No Keandre Miller is an issue. The Bruins outchanced Carolina at 5-on-5, 14-7 in high danger scenarios, which is shocking to me with the way Carolina plays. The Bruins have been streaky as well this season. That's the other big thing. 28 saves from Jeremy Swayman. Third period goals from Casey Middlestat and Victor Arvidsson do the job for the Bruins as they take down the Canes 2-1. Shu, was this the best we've seen of the Bruins all season?
I think so, 100%. Considering that you got a full 60-minute effort and Jeremy Swayman was stellar in between the pipes, coming off a really disappointing performance team-wise. Especially against the Ottawa Senators on Monday, in which this was Swayman's first start since allowing 7 goals in that 7-2 loss against the Ottawa Senators on Monday. So for me, I look at this and say a much better effort, a much better performance team wide, and I certainly like what I saw from guys like Casey Middlestat and as well as Charlie McAvoy, who continues to really establish himself as the leader on this Bruins blue line.
Yeah, that Ottawa game felt like a wake-up call for Boston, and they didn't get it immediately. I think they fell behind 2-0 the first period of the first game back, and then they scored 5 unanswered in that game. And since then, they have not lost. So kudos to Marco Sturm and the Bruins and Charlie McAvoy, who's playing very well as you mentioned, Shu. One final game to talk about before we take a break. Columbus and St. Louis, and for two very different reasons. The story for St. Louis is trouble, and this is not something that I admit I saw coming. I thought the Blues were actually going to take a step forward this season, and they pressed the issue some in the third period, but just could not beat a sensational performance from Jet Greaves, who seems to have picked up where he left off last season. 37 saves to pace the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now the Jackets have won 4 straight. They appear to have picked up right where they left off. Let's hear what Jay Forster from Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets has to say.
I think that Gretzky's back, guys. Blue Jackets defeat the St. Louis Blues 3-2 with a 2-point night from Zach Werenski, a game-winning goal from Sean Monahan, finally getting that monkey off his back. A power play goal of all things. The penalty kill remains perfect, but for me, Jack Reeves, man, he just continues to look like he belongs here, right? Like, another excellent night from him. 36 saves on 38 shots, and the Blue Jackets have won 4 games in a row, which is still kind of wild to me, because I remember when we were excited about winning 3 games in a row last season. So I'm going to enjoy this one. Not the cleanest third period, but they hung on, they got the win, thanks to a couple of very, very timely plays from the goalie, and we move on. Islanders tomorrow. Blue Jackets can make it 5 wins in a row. We'll see how it goes. You can find out all about tonight's game on tomorrow's Locked On Blue Jackets.
All right, so Shu, obviously that's a great win for Columbus, who continues to play well. But I want to focus on the Blues for a second. So, it's November 1st, and there's a stat that if you are more than 4 points out of the race by November 1st, you have a 12% chance of making the playoffs. The Blues were one of 4 teams coming into tonight who were 4 points or worse out of the playoff race. So the question is, are the St. Louis Blues cooked, or do they have time to make this up?
I mean, it's starting to get late real early out here. And for me, there are people that are going to say, well, 2019. This is a whole different team in comparison to 2019. Like, let's just call it for what it is. And for me, I think that if the St. Louis Blues are not careful now and turn it around quickly, it's really going to be a very long winter for an organization that I thought going into the season were expected to contend for a Stanley Cup playoff spot. And right now, like, I just feel like that my confidence in them being a playoff team this season is really starting to wane for all the right reasons. Well, that actually makes sense, but then also for all the wrong reasons that the St. Louis Blues cannot seem to get things on together. It's truly baffling just to talk about what I've seen so far from the St. Louis Blues, but especially when you talk about some of the struggles that they've had offensively as well.
Yeah, it feels like a different problem every night. That's kind of the biggest concern right now. Hey, the Maple Leafs apparently played tonight. They couldn't be less on the mind of Toronto fans, but they got a win they actually really needed on the road in the cradle of Liberty, your backyard, Shu. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a few minutes on Locked On NHL Game Night. Our show brought to you in part, of course, by FanDuel. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. You can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so we come to our last set of games. The Toronto Maple Leafs come out big winners over the Philadelphia Flyers, 5-2 tonight. Felt like a must-win game for Toronto. We're going to talk about them coming up in just a moment. First, I want to hear from Rachel Donner of Locked On Philadelphia Flyers.
The Philadelphia Flyers and Dan Vladar in particular had a rough one versus the Toronto Maple Leafs, falling 5-2. Hi, I'm Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. Vladar wound up getting pulled after the Leafs' 4th goal on 19 shots, and it was the right thing to do. 2 of the Leafs' goals at least should have been stopped, and it just was not his night. I think it's a one-off, but we'll keep an eye on it for sure. The Flyers overall got off to a slow start and had a lot of issues with puck management at 5-on-5 and passes that were frequently a little behind the play. It wasn't truly until the 3rd period. I thought the Flyers looked dialed in more often than just in the power play situation. I did like that they were trying to have a strong net front presence with a lot of redirect attempts. It's something we've been talking about the Flyers lacking over the past several seasons, but it was noticeable that they were trying that. They also showed a resiliency to not give up until the very end, which should help carry them through to the game against Calgary. We, of course, hope that Chris Tanev is okay. That was a scary scary moment for him for sure. More on this game and the Calgary game on the Monday show of the Locked On Flyers podcast.
All right. And thanks, Rachel Shu. We'll start with Philly since we just heard from Rachel. Flyers have had, I think, a surprisingly effective start to the season. The goaltending has been way better than it was last year. Kind of felt like they might be due for a night like this, that Dan Vladar, good as he's been, could not quite sustain that level that he had been at.
And it's something I talked about on radio here locally in Philadelphia today, in terms of the play of Dan Vladar and how stellar he has been. Going into tonight's game, he led the NHL in save percentage by all starting goaltenders that are eligible, which is minimum like a four starts. But I would say that, in all honesty, that I'm not completely surprised. But what I will also add to that is some of the issues that the Flyers did have this season certainly came to surface. I mentioned that, Toronto was a team that was coming into this game tonight, the Maple Leafs, like with issues in terms of identity. They didn't know who they are. And tonight, I thought they played a pretty strong game. I'm talking about the Maple Leafs, that is, but the Flyers, the issues on 5-on-5, the issues with the passing and like looking as if that they were just a step, slower at times, didn't do the Flyers any sort of benefits or any favors whatsoever.
Austin Matthews with 1 goal on 5 shots. Nicholas Robertson got another goal. He's starting to heat up a little bit. Actually had a 2-point night for Robertson. And then Easton Cowan, young man Toronto fans are really excited about, got his first goal of his career. Congrats to him. Real quick before we move on, Eddie has used the term scuffling to describe Toronto to start the season. It's one of my favorite. I think it's just completely spot on.
A great word.
Yeah, but they didn't scuffle tonight. They actually looked pretty good.
Yeah. Which is a welcome sight, like for sure. Like, but you know what? You got to take it as it comes,
Oh, for sure. And they might have to, in this post Mitch Marner era, they might have to just take this one game at a time.
Precisely.
Speaking of Eddie, by the way, we actually have a report coming in from him. The New Jersey Devils have a weird one in LA, where I really thought LA at times actually looked like the better team in this one. Score not even close. New Jersey winds up winning this one 4-1. LA did get a late third period goal, gorgeous forecheck that set it up, but ultimately not enough for Los Angeles. New Jersey had the better goalie in this one. Here's Eddie from the scene where I think they were focused on some other things as well tonight.
Yeah.
As the World Series is being played behind me here in Los Angeles at Crypto.com Arena, we just saw the Devils beat the LA Kings by a score of 4-1. But a lot of great things for the Kings coming into this game. They checked a lot of boxes as far as what they wanted to do. They outshot the Devils in every period. They didn't give the NHL's #1 ranked power play one power play opportunity, and Jack Hughes had 0 points. And still the Kings lose. The Kings had 4 power play opportunities, didn't score on any of them, gave up 2 shorthanded goals to Dawson Mercer, and that was part of the problem for the Kings in losing this one again 4-1. The Kings fall to 0-3-2 on home ice this year. They were the best home team in the NHL just a year ago. Still trying to figure it out here in Los Angeles at home.
Gee, I wonder if they were really upset about that loss to New Jersey tonight at LA.
Nah, they weren't upset. They weren't that upset, especially considering how that Game 7 of the World Series went. It was pretty much like on a back burner for just for tonight only. but you know what? In terms of what Eddie was talking about in terms of the game, I actually was not surprised. I really did think that that Markstrom had a terrific game in net. But at the same time, like in terms of like the Kings, it was just a continuation of just the issue that they've had to start the season.
All right, so the Jets get the win over the Penguins, 5-2. Wonder if the Pittsburgh, maybe the Cinderella story is coming to an end early. Kyle Connor with 2 goals for Winnipeg, a goal apiece for Brad Lambert, Gabe Velarde, and Vlad Nemesnikov, as Winnipeg takes this one 5-2 over Pittsburgh. And the Penguins had a great month of October. November does not start the same way.
I mean, he certainly didn't, but you know what? Considering that the Penguins, like they had a point streak that ended at 8, which was impressive in its own right. I do think that they were facing a stiff test tonight in Winnipeg, in which that like Winnipeg showed yet again why they are a legitimate top contender in the Western Conference this year in terms of making a run for the Stanley Cup final. That is, so I think when you talk about it, as far as the game was concerned, Kyle Connor stole the show, and he was absolutely terrific in this game with 2 goals, along with Gabriel Velarde, who chipped in with the goal and assist as well.
Minnesota Wild get a much-needed win. Actually, these were really 2 teams who both needed a win, and only one of them got it. The Wild 5-2 over the Vancouver Canucks in this one. I'm going to use that word. I'm going to borrow it from Eddie again. 2 teams that have both been kind of scuffling to start the season. Minnesota outside the playoff race. Vancouver had been flirting with it. Minnesota gets the big win over the Canucks tonight.
Well, they certainly did, and you got to love the play of Vladimir Tarasenko, who had a 3-point night, a goal and 2 assists. So for me, I think it was also critical to see how they were able to chip in in terms of the other players Jonas Brodin and Vinny Hino Stroza, chipping in with a goal and assist each for the Wild. And I think that for them, they're going to have to really turn it around offensively if they're going to get back into contending for a playoff spot in the Western Conference.
Seth Topal will have much more on that on Locked On Minnesota Wild. And then we finally wrap tonight. Nashville, a 4-2 win over Calgary. And the Flames' season of misery just continues to get worse as they really can't seem to muster up much scoring. And they weren't particularly dangerous in this one. Now, Nashville, they actually overall outshot Nashville 35-24, but the Predators get the goaltending. The Predators get the goals. You could say maybe it's one of those nights if you're a Flames fan. Nashville ultimately getting help up and down the lineup. Forsberg and Marchessault at the top, Wood and Bunting at the bottom as they pull out the win.
Wood and Bunting was definitely the combo that the Predators needed in this game, but then also Jonathan Marchessault, it was good to see him get on the score sheet as well. But also UC Saros, you need UC Saros to be the UC Saros of old, in which that when he was a pretty good goaltender, but for some reason the last season plus he's lost all sorts of confidence. So seeing him have to perform like he did tonight against the Flames, certainly huge for the Nashville Predators moving forward.
If you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, there is a Locked On NHL Team podcast and YouTube show for you, because we have one for every NHL team. We are still working on the Calgary Flames. Hopefully have that position filled soon. This show, Locked On NHL Game Nights, here for you each and every night of the regular season and the playoffs, wrapping up the night of action in the NHL. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this show if you're watching on YouTube. We want to see your thoughts as well on tonight's games. Who had the best night? Who had the most important win of the night? Are the St. Louis Blues okay? The answer is probably no, but we still want to hear what you have to say in the comments section. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. He's Shukri Wrights. I'm Alex Wiederspiel. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.